Hey guys, Frank with Tithely. Great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us live. Back to our regular schedule, Monday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific. And we've been interviewing church leaders from all over the U.S., from Canada, trying to get some guests from Australia, but just talking to pastors and church leaders about church during COVID and how we're moving to church online and what people are learning and different experiences, and just exploring how, again, pastors and church leaders who are kind of on the ground doing the work are adjusting to these times. So I'm really excited today about our guests. I've got a great guest showing up. Let me pop him in. Justin Peircy from Connexus Church. Hey, Justin, how's it going?
Good. How about you, Frank?
It's going awesome. I always love it. I love Monday mornings because I love doing these shows. And for everyone that's joining us, I'm pretty excited about today's topic. We're talking about 3 ways to use YouTube to grow your church. And Justin does a lot of things at Connexus Church, but one of those things involves all of their digital ministry. So Justin spent a bunch of time helping Connexus get better and better on YouTube and grow their audience and figure out how to kind of take church digital in a really effective way. So Justin, I'm personally excited because my church is probably like many churches who went to online church in a much more significant way during COVID. And we chose YouTube as kind of our main destination, though we also put it on Facebook. But we're still rookies, we're still figuring it out. So I'm excited to learn some things from you today. I'm excited for the conversation. And I know we've seen a ton of interest as we've kind of told our Tithely universe about this show. So super, super excited. Before we jump into kind of the topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into ministry and what you do at Connexus and who Connexus is serving and all those kind of things.
Yeah, totally. So I've been at Connexus for just about 10 years now. And I oversee kind of the adult service world. That's like the programming, the creative direction, a lot of the branding, marketing, that kind of thing. Everything digital kind of goes along hand in hand with that. We're located in Canada, just north of Toronto. We have 3 locations, and they're all about 30 minutes separated from one another, about an hour north of Toronto. We see typically between all 3 locations about 1,500 people, if you're counting kids and volunteers too, somewhere around there. We have 14 staff, I think, right now.
Okay.
So that's kind of like our size and scope. We like to say that we're a church that unchurched people would love to attend. So we're really all about reaching that new audience, people who wouldn't normally be in church, and kind of taking them along the journey from kind of being spiritually curious, or maybe not even spiritually curious, down the road of faith. So that's a little bit about us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how did you start in ministry? Like, what was your first ministry job? And how, I don't know, it's just always interesting. Like, what's your path been?
Yeah, so I'm a musician, bass player, and sound engineer, and actually had post-secondary training in sound engineering.
Okay.
Ended up volunteering at our broadcast location, doing that, and then there was a position that came up in the programming world, and they kind of said, "Hey, you should think about applying for that."
Yeah.
So I did, and I was quite young at the time. I was 23, I think, when they hired me for that role. And I've just been in it, growing along the way, and the church has been growing, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, man, let's jump in. So I think just talking about YouTube, give us, maybe even before we jump all the way in, what has your experience been like kind of going online during this season of COVID, and why is YouTube your chosen kind of primary destination, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. You said something at the beginning where it's you said, "Hey, I feel like I'm a rookie in this." I think it's important, we're all rookies in this in some way. Yeah. Everybody who is navigating doing something in the COVID season is a rookie at it. Mm-hmm. And I would say we're learning just along with everybody else.
Yeah.
We started pushing on YouTube in particular a little bit earlier than COVID. So we have really been at it kind of for a year or so.
Okay.
And the reason why we kind of jumped in on it was we just started seeing, hey, like some of our platforms are losing engagement and some of them are gaining. YouTube was one that had started gaining engagement, even though we weren't really saying anything about it.
Yeah.
And like a lot of churches, we were using a lockdown private player on our website, and we were actually seeing that losing engagement over time. And I really became convicted that it's like every view we get, everything we do online should work toward getting us more momentum.
Right.
Whereas, and you see that on YouTube, a view makes YouTube more likely to get another view and another view. Whereas if you have like a locked in player system, you get a view and you get to count it.
Right.
But that's kind of it. It doesn't build on your platform to kind of say, hey, this platform is gaining momentum. Maybe I should show it to more people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we started with it, and just said, hey, like if we put all of our eggs in this basket from a video delivery content standpoint, it's going to spin up like a flywheel over time. And really, we have actually seen that happen, which has been very encouraging.
Yeah. And so let's kind of jump in. You have three things. I know we're going to talk probably about a lot more than that, but what are some of the early on changes that you guys made at Connexus to kind of increase engagement and participation and all those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that we really did early on in this season specifically was we got like right into our data and into our dashboards and looked at it very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I like to say is when COVID hit overnight, everything that we do and every interaction that people have with our church became quantifiable because it's all digital. So, or, depending on where you're at in the reopening process, it used to be all digital, or maybe a lot of it is still digital. And you can actually look at a very high degree of detail and kind of see how people are interacting with your services.
Right.
Well, the very first thing we did when it comes to engagement was, we looked at the two primary social platforms, Facebook and YouTube. And we discovered very quickly that engagement on Facebook, even though it felt better because you got the little bubbles that pop up when people are liking and stuff, and the comments that pop up, and you can see, oh, hey, this person tuned in the little chat.
Yep.
Our average watch time was like less than 2 minutes generally on Facebook.
Okay.
Whereas YouTube, it was up closer to 20 minutes. So despite how it felt, YouTube didn't feel as good from like, how does it feel for us? But when you look at the data, it's like people are actually engaging at a much deeper level on this platform. So we want to push more energy behind it.
It's really interesting too, because you just think that more people are kind of socially engaging on a regular basis, day to day on Facebook. This is my own thinking. So I don't know if anybody else shares it, but people are there. Most church members are probably there. Mm-hmm. And so you think, oh, go live on Facebook because then they can share it with their friends and they can, right? It's built into this social network that's definitely very different than what YouTube's experience is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't yield the actual results you would think it's going to have based on those things, right? So like, oh, they watch it for a short period of time and then they leave, or for whatever reason, it's very short. Whereas on YouTube, people are watching for a much longer time. So
totally.
Why do you think that is?
I actually, if you just look at how the platforms are built and what they're built for, it actually makes a lot of sense. And we actually do still stream to Facebook. It's just we try and get as much of that audience over to YouTube kind of eventually. Yeah. But for the same reason you say like people can share it. It's going to be distributed by friend networks and all that. But when you look at the two platforms, YouTube is built to get people watching more video content for longer. That's what YouTube wants, because ultimately YouTube is going to be able to serve more people more ads when that is happening. Yeah. Facebook wants to get people scrolling through and engaging with as much content as possible. So it's actually in Facebook's interest to not have people watch for a long time, because it means that they can be showing those people more content and getting like a quick, easy engagement, like a like or a quick comment. You see Facebook releasing features like pre-done comments. You saw that in churches a couple weeks ago. They're like, oh, Facebook added like pre-done comments, like amen with prayer emoji. Yeah, that's all designed to get people to do like a quick, you don't even have to think about it, engage with the content. And hey, if you want to keep scrolling while you're watching this video, you can. It'll keep playing in the corner until you start clicking another video, and then you're gone.
Right.
So it's really designed to show people the most amount of content and get them engaging with as many pieces of content as possible.
Right.
Whereas YouTube is more designed, let's lock this person into a video and get them watching for as many watch hours, YouTube would call it, as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, makes tons of sense. I'm glad we picked YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes me feel good.
Yep.
So what else, just on this increasing engagement? So you kind of did your analysis, you chose YouTube.
Yep.
And then what else did you do kind of after you analyzed your data?
Yeah. So we did like a whole pile of things. Like we redid all of our service programming. We looked at where people were dropping off, where in the service the music was, how long the sermons were, when people would come to our site. And we changed our service times because we were finding people were coming on the hour, regardless of when our times were. That would be new guests kind of just landing on our site on the hour.
Like if you had a 10:30 service, that was a bad idea because everyone was up at 11 kind of thing.
Yeah, like people would just generally tend to go to a church website on the hour, and we could see them coming in. So we changed our service times to cooperate with that. When you talk about digital engagement, something that I think a lot of churches miss is they think about digital engagement in the same way they think of in-person engagement, and they expect people to take the same steps. Mm-hmm. Whereas, what we're learning and what traditional marketing would say is that's just not true. Like when you're picking somebody up digitally, they're just going to be earlier on in the journey than if they were to walk through your doors.
Right.
So the steps need to be smaller. Maybe a step of engagement is them subscribing to your channel, and that's all you're going to ask of them.
Yeah.
So we started really pushing on the digitally native engagement steps, like sharing, subscribing, those types of things, steps that are easy to take without, people needing to give us like a ton of information. That kind of thing.
Can we jump? You said one thing that I thought was really interesting. I mean, I actually think changing your service times is interesting because I bet you changing service times for many churches is like a thing. Like there's personal connection to I meet at this time and I go to this time service.
Yeah.
But let's leave that one there. You also said you changed your programming, so your kind of your actual services. What did you do? Like, walk me through maybe some of the 2 or 3 of the big changes you made to adapt for doing services online.
Yeah. Well, on YouTube, we were finding our average watch time was around 18 to 22 minutes with our core audience. Yep. So we shortened our sermon to be, somewhere around 25 minutes.
Okay.
Because, obviously if people are going to watch for 20 minutes, 20 minutes is a higher percentage of a 25-minute sermon than it is of a 40-minute sermon.
Totally. And did you front load it? Did you move the sermon to like almost right at the beginning? Like,
yes, we did.
So walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So, on YouTube, you can see where people are actually dropping off if you're watching the right stat on your live stream.
Right.
And so we would find, if we did like a 15-minute music set before the sermon, really people are coming for the sermon, and there is people who engage with God through music.
Yep.
But if people are going to be there for church online, ultimately that's kind of what they're going to be walking away with. So we were finding if we didn't give that to people soon enough, they would drop off. Or if we did a huge long stretch of music all in one shot, they would drop off. So we put the sermon up closer to the front. If we did music, we shortened our arrangements so they weren't as long. So we don't ever do like anything longer than a 5-minute arrangement online. Even that is long, I think, online. So we shortened all that stuff up. One of the things that I'm always telling our hosts is like, think like a YouTuber. So if somebody drops on, you want to tell them why they want to stay to the end right away.
Right.
You want to give them easy, quick calls to action. You see that on YouTube all the time. It's like you play the video and it's like, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Here's the 3 things we're going to learn today. Right. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's get to it. And there's like a transition and then like the video starts.
Right.
You almost need to think of online content like that. in terms of, how are you treating your audience and what are you asking them to do, and why should they be sticking around for your content? So those are just some of the things that we did in terms of changing our programming around.
And do you guys have sort of online hosts? And did you have a version of that in physical church, like in the building, or did you change something up for the online experience?
Yeah, we didn't. So that's a new thing for us since COVID. And to be honest with you, it's one of the most successful things we've done. So basically, we open it up like 10 minutes before the service time. There's live people there who are on camera. And they're giving shout outs, to people who they're seeing jumping on. That's another thing that streamers do all the time, is like, they're like, hey, so-and-so, so glad to see you. And like, man, I'll tell you, if you want to see more people comment on your stream, like shout outs are a great way to do it.
Like all the things that I feel like as you're saying them, I should do on this show as well. But I'm like taking notes like, I'm
going to give a shout out to Dave Adamson right now. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to follow this guy, go to his page and jump on his speaking page and get his consulting thing going, because that's the guy right there who really convinced me to pay attention to this platform.
And an Aussie
too. Yeah. So
we're gonna get Dave on the show. He'll be our first Aussie.
Yeah, he's gonna love getting the shout out too, because I know Dave's all about YouTube, so he watches streamers all the time. But it's like, giving shout outs on your channel, really just thinking like a streamer like that. It's counterintuitive, but having those people on camera and not just like talking, giving announcements,
right,
but having fun, keeping it light,
right,
engaging with the audience in real time. That's another thing I should say is our huge algorithm bumps that we see, where we actually see like 3/4 or more of our audience coming to us, like basically on a silver platter from YouTube. It's all during live events. So if a church is positioned to go live, that's where we see all of our momentum rather than just posting a video.
Right.
Another thing we did.
Is it premiering on YouTube, or is it?
No, we go live on YouTube.
Okay. So you guys go live for the whole thing. There's
4 services. Yeah.
Got it. So no pre-recorded stuff.
Yeah. One other thing we did to game the system was we used to do like 4 mini streams. And what we did is we actually did it like all the services come in one long stream, so we don't actually turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
And what that does is, number one, from YouTube's perspective, it gains momentum throughout the service. So it's like saying, oh, there's more people tuning in. Oh, they're watching for like a long time. Oh, maybe I should show this to more people. Then what we do afterwards is we edit it down to a single sermon. So then once we post that as on-demand content, it's got already from day one all of the views that we had on our live stream that morning kind of loaded into that one 25 to 30 minute video. And then YouTube is set to say, wow, this is just posted and it's got like 4,000 views on it. Maybe I should show it to more people.
So walk me through that, because I think there's probably some things in there. So you go live for 4 hours or whatever the time frame is, because you just continuously run all your services and basically start over every hour or so.
Yep.
Then you're saying, so that's live, that's going to YouTube. And normally when you kind of are done going live, it just takes that and it's the thing that stays on YouTube as the piece of content. So if you're going live for 4 hours, you'd have a 4-hour video as an evergreen piece of content. But you're saying you actually don't let that sit. You go and edit it afterwards.
Yeah, there's an editor right inside your YouTube dashboard that allows you to like trim that video down to just the part you want. And what the intuitive thing to do is to trim it down to a full service and then post your sermon as a separate video. But we actually want all of the momentum behind our sermon because that's what people watch.
Right.
So we actually flip that. We edit it down to just the sermon, and the full service video we edit and upload separately. And we have that posted on our website. It honestly doesn't get as much traffic as the sermon by a long shot. We have started posting all of our music videos separately because that's a more native way to engage music on YouTube.
Right.
And we're seeing the full service video kind of get less and less engagement. We still post it because some people look for it.
There's something to it, right? Like the live experience is far different than the online experience that people want. So like doing music and worship and prayer and listening to all the announcements and all the other things that might be going on are just things that people tend to be like, they're less interested in all that stuff. But the sermon, which you made the point earlier, like the sermon's the meat. Like, I'll listen to the 20-minute sermon maybe at any point. So put that thing up, make it easy for me to get to. SEO optimize it for YouTube and all the things.
Yep.
That's a great piece of content that just fits more with what people I think are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yep.
Any other bits in there on the engagement side? Because I want to get to kind of your kind of keeping content fresh and creative and those kinds of things. But
there is a lot on actual like keeping the video content engaging. I think, doing those intros where you're doing whatever you can to keep people watching for longer is helpful. I know I mentioned that. Thinking like your viewer rather than thinking like your church is a big one. So as a church, it's easy to say, hey, we want to, this is the series we're in, this is the part number we're in, this is the date it's on, let's just title it that so it's easier for our people to find.
Right.
But if someone is looking for your content on YouTube, they're going to be likely asking a question. So you want to figure out, hey, what is an unchurched person? What question are they going to be asking that this sermon is going to answer? And then titling that appropriately. So when they land on your content, they're going to watch for longer because they feel like they're going to get their question answered.
It's this whole like optimizing your content, which you've already given some tips, but optimizing it for after the service is done. So go in there and sort of think about, I love what you're like, think about what unchurched or people that are seeking answers to stuff and try to title things that way, probably write the description that way. Do you guys use keywords and things like that heavily?
Yeah, this is one we picked up from Dave. Again, you should just go get in his YouTube or his Facebook group, YouTube Your Church, because it's great. And one of the things that he talks about all the time is using a service called vidIQ, which is basically like a tool. It's a paid tool. It's not very expensive, but it helps you find the highest value keywords that you can use. So it'll give you, number one, like this is a great keyword to use, and this is how competitive also that keyword is. Mm-hmm. So you want to pick the right balance of high value and less competitive as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it. Another shout out. It's called vidIQ.
Yeah, it's called vidIQ. Morning Fame is another one that they would recommend. We're vidIQ users predominantly. But yeah, it's really helpful to use a tool like that to, try and, even while your stream is live, like we try and get trending for certain keywords. Mm-hmm. And most of the time we do. It's just figuring out which are the best ones to use.
Can we talk about, you just said while your stream is live and you're watching some stuff, that just sparked a thought, like, do you have a team of sort of digital folks that are paying attention to comments and watching the analytics and doing anything else? Like, what does that crew look like during the live service?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're all live online right now. We're not open even partially at our physical location. So we're 100% digital. We redeployed a lot of our team from like things that they were doing to things that are now 100% digital. So almost all of our staff is in the live chat somewhere on one of our platforms on a Sunday morning as of right now. Mm-hmm. And we're in the midst of transitioning that to volunteers. But right now, a lot of our team is doing like what I would call like moderation. Yeah. And YouTubers who are big enough also have a team of moderators often that they will use. So that's what a lot of our team is doing. So, the people who are, doing that generally aren't also in the analytics at the same time. I'm probably the one who pays the closest attention to the analytics. I look at, you can go while you're streaming live in YouTube, there's a dashboard that you can go into. You can see the chat rate. You can see something they call playbacks, which is number of people who are like basically clicking play on your video, and the number of concurrent viewers. And it gives you a curve. And you can actually see, okay, this is where YouTube started suggesting our content. It was after this amount of time, and it was at this chat rate, and really trying to make those connections. That's one thing I would really encourage anybody who's watching to really get into their dashboards and paying attention to their data, because there's like a lot you can learn there. And so often it's just ignored. And we look at that on a weekly basis, and we make iterations on pretty much everything we're doing, the service order, how we're trying to convert new guests, how we're talking to people, what we're saying on camera. And you can see the result in YouTube if you're looking for it, but you have to look for it.
Right.
That's the key.
No, it's super smart, and it makes all the sense in the world as you're kind of saying it out loud. But I think churches, right, just kind of connecting with the audience, it's a whole new like paradigm shift for most churches. Like there's a lot of churches that have been on YouTube and doing this stuff and have teams that think about it. But I would say most churches in the world are not that group, right? Their COVID season pushed them online, and they're kind of taking what they did in person and doing it online. And I bet you a lot of churches over the last 3 months have grown tremendously and learned things, and they're getting better. But it's almost like the basics, right? Maybe they got a better microphone and a better camera, and they decided to go live from their home versus the sanctuary, or like things like that. But now getting into your analytics and really thinking through how you're going to do your service and seeing what really moves the needle is like the next level, right?
Yeah.
So I love that.
I'll give you an example. So we just started a series with a pastor from another church, Mark Clark from Village Church. Great church, great pastor, great communicator. He's out of Vancouver. We're out of Toronto. We've done like a lot of back and forth between the two of us on different things. Yeah. And this Sunday, we didn't see the same algorithmic bump that we normally would.
You're like, Mark, what's going on, man?
Yeah. And there's been one other Sunday over the last 5 weeks where that happened. So it's like we dive right into the data. We're like, why didn't that happen? Right. We were like 3,000 viewers below where we would normally be on all the rest of the week. So like, what are the commonalities? We're looking at like monetization. We're looking at the lull time between services. We're looking at, the average watch time of the core audience before we would have expected the algorithm bump. We're comparing all those things. Yeah. What my theory is at the time being is both of the messages that happened where that we didn't get that bump were pre-recorded. Whereas normally we would do a couple live and then start pre-recording. Okay. And YouTube is actually scanning your content at all times while you're streaming. So I'm wondering if maybe it detected that the second sermon was actually the identical same video file as the first sermon. And it maybe didn't suggest it because this is just recycled content. It's not actually a fresh stream over multiple hours. Right. So what we're doing this week, we can edit those messages. So we're like adjusting the speed by like 1 to 2% between the two files to make sure the audio doesn't line up from YouTube's perspective. We're doing different camera cuts between the first two messages because we know YouTube is looking at the video file. It's like making those type of iterations to maximize the reach on the platform, not just in what the host is saying, because YouTube is listening to it. They can transcribe it in real time. Yeah, totally. But also in the actual video files that we're playing back. Maybe we'll start doing the same thing with music. But unless you're looking at your data and trying to figure out what are the things that is actually happening behind the scenes and what are our users doing, you miss all of that opportunity. Right. Yeah. Makes total sense. So you mentioned having a host, you mentioned kind of shortening service, putting the sermon up front, rearranging a few things. Is there any other things you've done on just keeping content fresh and creative and thinking for the online medium versus the, physical in-person gatherings? Yep. We try and keep things looking different as often as possible. We try and keep the format different as often as possible. So every music video shoot we do in a different location, because online novelty will equal engagement. Right. If you follow Brady Shearer, Pro Church Tools, this is something that he says all the time. He says repeat equals defeat, and it is totally true. The first time you do something new, you'll see your engagement up here. And then if you keep repeating the same thing, it'll drop every time. Yeah. So, we really try and keep things looking fresh, sounding fresh, the fresh format, and really, trying to make sure things are looking different as much as possible. Even if it just feels like you're going through the creative meat grinder, right? That is going to generate more engagement over time. Yeah. I feel like news channels, for whatever reason, I keep thinking about like news stations during this for churches, because
if you're watching the news, they're bringing in new guests and they're moving segments and they're showing
Absolutely.
the backgrounds of the things and they're doing different camera angles and like all the things are changing like every minute or 30 seconds or something like that. So I think all that stuff, not that I know a ton about it personally, but it obviously all applies to people watching online and things being dynamic and changing and different all the time, because you get lulled to sleep if things aren't changing. Like, you know, watching somebody preach maybe from right here for 30 minutes, never changing, is going to get, you know, not, maybe they're saying awesome stuff and it's inspiring, but for whatever reason, watching that online is fatiguing versus in person.
And how much more so if you do that for 8 or 12 weeks in a row, exactly in the same way.
Right. You just know what to expect. Here it comes again. And best-hearted people on the planet watching, but still, there's just something to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to think of. Very cool. What about? I know one of the ones we wanted to touch on that's big is just expanding to reach new people. Like, how have you thought about growing? Sounds like you've grown your audience tremendously, but what's been the thinking? What are some of the things that you've really done that you've seen make the biggest impact there?
Yeah, so that's something that we've really seen on our platforms that I haven't seen a lot of people see. And it comes down to a couple things. Number one, YouTube is a social network. And it doesn't feel like that when you're starting out. It feels like you post a video and your people are coming to see it and the result is lower than you wanted. And then you go on to the next week. But again, if you look in your analytics, there will be a small percentage of your traffic, even if you're a small channel, that comes from YouTube suggested videos. So that it is coming in. You just don't realize it when your channel is small. In terms of using YouTube to reach new people, like I said earlier, we've seen Sundays where, you know, easily 75, 80% of our audience is coming from YouTube globally. So it is a really effective tool to reach new people. A couple things that you want to pay attention to if you're trying to use YouTube for that. Number one, you're going to have to work at it for a while before you get it. We're a church of like 1,500, 3 locations. So we have a fair size following as it is compared to a lot of churches that are like 100, 200 people. And we had to work at it for a year and then have COVID happen before we started to do that.
Like push you almost, right? It took the extra nudge.
And we really locked in like, hey, this is the platform we want to do. We're going to persevere. We know it's not always going to feel good. We want to be consistent and just keep pushing people to it, getting people to subscribe. And then, you know, eventually it pays off, but it doesn't happen overnight. So that's the first thing. It's like, you really got to go for it and you just got to keep going for it. And it's not going to feel good for a while. Then once you start to see that, you need to look at things like, you know, one big thing that we did was being really intentional around our thumbnail images. Because when Google suggests your content, it suggests it along with 3 or 4 other videos that people have the option to click on. You want to be the video that they click on. And you want to look at that click-through rate on a weekly basis to determine, hey, was this thumbnail more effective than last week's thumbnail?
And if it's not, is that done after service is over when you're kind of repackaging everything, or do you do that before service?
We see our biggest algorithmic bumps while we're live, and the greatest level of suggestion while we're live. So we try and optimize that ahead of time. And like I said, on this past Sunday, we did the series with Mark Clark. We didn't see those same algorithm gains that we were expecting. We actually saw that before our second service was over. And we're like, okay, it's not happening the way we expected. Could it be the thumbnail? The thumbnail was a little bit different than we expected. So we actually changed the thumbnail midway through the stream and the stream title to see if that would have an effect. It's that like level of quick iteration that you need to do if you want to see those gains over time. So that's something that you really want to pay attention to is, what is our thumbnail? What is our title? Are people actually going to click on this? Because even though YouTube will suggest your content, it's still competitive because they're suggesting you along with numerous other videos. Then after that, once once you get into the whole, okay, YouTube is actually spiking our content. We're seeing more than our core traffic coming in by this method. What are you doing with those people? So usually when that happens, we have we'll flag it in our Slack. Hey, this is happening. We're getting the algorithm traffic. And then somebody will get the host at the next available opportunity, ask people to subscribe because you got like 3 or 4 times the audience that you would normally be expecting. Some of those subscribers don't stick. But again, it's the flywheel principle where you want YouTube to be, your platform to be as big as possible. Yeah. So it will be showing it to more people next time.
Right. And are your hosts always doing the YouTube thing, like, hey, subscribe to the channel, click on the thing? Do you have like little animations and all this kind of stuff like built in where you've really focused on that?
We have a minimum number of times per service they need to say that.
Okay.
And it feels weird for totally. If you're like, hey, if you're new, hey, we'd love for you to share this with your friends. Go down, like this video. I'm going to wait for you to do it down here and then subscribe and make sure you hit the bell. So, it feels weird for church people.
I know.
But if you watch YouTube videos, that's what people do.
I know. I think even YouTubers probably had to get comfortable doing that, right? Like everyone has to get over the hump. Like, again, I don't even do it here, and we go live on YouTube and all this stuff gets posted on YouTube. And even all the principles you're describing are things that we can do better at, even on the show here, right? It's just it's like a mentality of this channel matters, and I'm going to do everything I can to optimize it for the best results. Like I may not get it, but there's like a certain set of things in my control that I can do, and I'm going to do it all and sort of hope for the best. And it'll probably pay off.
In time, it will.
In time. Yeah. So how long did it take you? I mean, you kind of mentioned a year, but like, was it about 12 months to where you started seeing the big spike in live views and just traffic to these recordings?
Yeah, it was about 12 months from when we really started on the platform.
Yeah.
I will say COVID had a lot to do with it because, we were using that lockdown web player on our website for, until I think last August or something. And then we switched it over to YouTube so that more of our website views were coming through YouTube. And even at the beginning of COVID, I would say we were pushing Facebook and YouTube equally until we saw the average watch times. And as time has gone on, we just put more and more fuel behind YouTube. And I think it was last week of May or first week of June, we started seeing those first real big algorithm bumps.
Right.
And yeah, it was also one other thing. YouTube will go to the ends of the earth to say this, that there's no connection between them suggesting your content and whether your content is monetized. But it was about 5 to 6 weeks after we started monetizing our content that we saw the algorithm bumps.
Okay.
And I will say that the lived experience of streamers kind of says that it may have some connection. It may be indirect, but yeah. And I know there's whole tax things you got to think about, and it's not a lot of money for pretty nearly any church channel unless you have millions of subscribers. But
right. So you just turn on the ads. You're basically letting ads run. Hopefully they're good ads, contextual, all those kind of things. But by turning those settings on, there might be a connection.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
YouTube will say definitely not.
Right. It makes sense. YouTube makes money that way. So
yeah. But yeah, last June, I pulled a number just because I know I said last June, we were 400 views a week. It was actually closer to 200 views a week we would see on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And this June, I'm just going to see what it was by week this June. It was just over 4,500 views per week.
Wow.
And on this June. So now that being said, we moved a lot of our website views over to YouTube. But I'll tell you, the views last year overall, pale in comparison to where they're at this year.
Right.
Yeah. But it's just pushing. Yeah. Just pushing consistency, looking at the metrics, and having buy-in. I think that's a big part of it too, having buy-in from your lead pastor.
Yeah.
Our lead pastor, Jeff, would definitely say, he's like, I didn't really get it at first, but I decided to go along with it, and it really has paid off for us.
This is such a good part of the discussion. I think a lot of churches I would just imagine, and kind of my conversations and knowing that COVID pushed a lot of people online that weren't really, even if they were kind of online, they weren't really doing church online in the way that all the kind of pros who have been doing it for a while would say it needs to be done. But I do think sort of senior pastor or leadership team buy-in is a big deal. Like, how do you get there? How do you think churches get there? And then, like, what do you do if a church is kind of maybe partially there, but we're in the season where you're doing it anyways? Like, we're all online, so there's no, like, it is being done, but I think leadership could still have some, like, we're waiting to get back to normal.
Yeah. If we ever get there.
Yeah, who knows what that'll be like, but there's still this thinking going on about getting back to normal versus learning in this time. So what have you found that's really helped the leadership team?
Yeah, well, what I would say is going to leadership and saying, I think we should do this generally doesn't cut it.
Right.
What you need to do is give them a good reason to do it and tell them what will happen, help them understand what is happening.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why you need to be in your numbers and knowing what is actually happening on your platforms. Like when we started pushing to YouTube this time last year, it was because I was in the numbers and I was seeing, people are like not actually watching our video content as much on our website when I look at it over the last 6 months.
Right.
And they're starting to move over to our audio podcast over here. Well, I actually do want them to watch this content, so we need to change the strategy. So I went to Jeff and I said, hey, look at this, man. Like when I put this on a graph, this is our website views over time. They're starting to go down, and our podcast is doing the opposite. It's going up. So I said, I'd like to try and switch this. This is how we can do this. Here's some stats on YouTube. A majority of our people are on it already every month. In Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's closer to 80% of people are on YouTube once a month at least.
Yeah.
And you look at all the search stuff, you look at the traffic going through it, and it just makes a lot of sense, But unless you can back it up with numbers, it's hard because the leader is going to have to be the one who is leading people through change, right? So unless a pastor or lead pastor or whoever, executive director, feels like they have the reason and the truth of understanding of why this change is important, our teaching pastor, Carrie, will say this, like, the pain of the status quo needs to be higher than the pain associated with the change.
Yeah.
So unless you can sell a lead pastor or executive director on why they need to lead people through this change and what the benefit is going to be on the other side and the trajectory of where you're going to go, getting buy-in is going to be really difficult.
Big deal. Yeah. So related to that, and we'll, any closing thoughts after this would be awesome. But are you guys, when church goes back to in-person gatherings, whatever that kind of looks like, how are you going to continue with the online church presence that you've established?
Yeah, that's a great question. We talk about this a lot, actually, as a team, and I love the approach that our lead pastor Jeff is taking on it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a change of a business model from being a local organization with a digital expression to being a digital organization with local expression. And if you want to see what that looks like, Home Depot, for example, that's like an organization that has local businesses. They've made great stretches to move to online that you can purchase from Home Depot online. They're doing good things online, but they're still like primarily, they're an organization that has, their core is their stores right now. Right. You look at Warby Parker is another example of glasses company. Yep. They are an online company. They sell glasses online. You can fit your glasses online. You purchase them online. You get them in the mail. Warby Parker also has stores that you can go to if you really want.
I didn't know that. I knew they were online. I didn't know they actually had any stores.
Yeah, no, they got stores, and you can go to a Warby Parker store if you are so inclined to do so. But you can, they're a digital first organization. Right. Now for churches, that has like a whole other set of questions that are deeply uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, because you want people to be gathering. Community is a huge part. What does that look like digitally? And how do you marry the digital and the in-person?
Right.
How do you connect people? How do you lead them on their faith journey when digital is a core part of your model? What do you do with kids? You know, that's a whole other question that we're wrestling down right now.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we would say it's tremendously important for a child to have a consistent small group leader in their life week after week. What does that look like? So it leads to a whole set of questions that transparently we don't have answered yet.
Right.
But I think that we are committed to not staying in the past, and to becoming an organization, a church that has a digital strategy at its core,
right.
rather than this part over here.
Yeah. No, I think that's, I mean, I, you know, my own personal world lean kind of that way. Like churches should come out of this really thinking heavily about what's digital church look like. And it should be an important part of any church going forward. And that'll look different based on your size and your tech savviness and all kinds of things. But if we come out of this just going back to the old way, like we've kind of missed this opportunity. But there's a lot to sort out. It's hard, right? Small groups and kids and connecting volunteers and all the things are like, it's the Wild West in terms of figuring it out and figuring out what works and
totally.
All that. So it is tricky, but Justin, man, this has been awesome. I super appreciate your time. Where can folks go to check you guys out? See, you know, kind of see what you're doing online on YouTube.
Well, of course, I'm going to say subscribe to our channel.
That's right.
And while you're at it, like, share, and hit the bell.
How do people get to your channel? Just search Connexus Church on YouTube?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Easy as pie. Yep. So go hit up our channel. You can go on our website too if you want. But if you want to see what we're doing in this area, YouTube is definitely the best place. So
YouTube's the way.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Anybody that's still watching live, there's always a few hundred of you out there. We get a bunch of live views and we get a bunch that kind of watch after the fact, but we love giving away stuff. So we always give away a set of AirPod Pros. I think I always get the name wrong, but make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because we're going to use that. And if you're commenting and liking and all the good stuff, but we'll announce that in our newsletter and we'll be back with you guys in another week. And definitely go check out Connexus Church and what they're doing on YouTube. Justin, I love all the tips you shared. I really hope folks kind of take a couple of things away and use it as they're growing their YouTube audience. I know I'm going to send it to my church leadership team, but super appreciate you. And we'll see you guys online.
Yep. Happy to help. Thanks for having me. Like you said, I hope this has been helpful.
Yeah. Amen. All right, Justin, everybody watching live. Thanks guys. We'll see you next week.